Hi there, and welcome to our very latest Five from the Archive. This time it's from someone or with someone who I owe so much to with regards to Camversation and this global community. It's Diane Seddon, who without her help all those years ago, Camversation wouldn't be anywhere near what it is now, and such a fabulous community of photographers. Diane comes to share her 5 top images with us, and we also get to learn a little bit more about what makes Diane tick and about her background and history as well. Fabulous stuff, and I do hope you enjoy. So, Diane, thanks very much for coming along today. I feel like you're such a good friend of mine. I really do feel that. And we've known each other for years. And I know you hate me saying this, so I'm just going to say it once and get it out of the way now.
All right.
That you're the reason that Camversation's here. You're one of the first 2 people, one of the first 3 people all those years ago that got it started, recommended great people, shared all the events and so on. So the reason this community exists and is so wonderfully supportive is down to you and down to people like you in those really early days. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming along today. I know you really well. I know your kind of photography and I really enjoy it. We've just been having a quick chat before we opened. But Dan, if I could just pass over to you for a few minutes, just to tell us a little bit more about yourself, your history, your background, and sort of how you got into photography really before we...
My dad was a boilermaker, and in his spare time, he shot weddings, and he had a twin-line triplex and a 35mm camera, and we had a built-in wardrobe at home, and he converted it into a darkroom, and so it was a really tiny space, and I had no idea what he did in this little darkroom. So I started to try and fit in with him, and it was a real tight squeeze. He was like 2 stools side by side, very much bunched together. And what started it off was he had this piece of blank paper and he dropped it into this tray of liquid and a picture appeared. And it was magic, absolute magic. I thought, how can this possibly happen? So from there, working backwards, I started to help him process film. And then we started to do stuff in the darkroom. So I learned about dodging and burning. And I just fell in love with it. But what I hated was the smell of the chemicals. Moving forward in time pretty quickly, I had to get a proper job. So I went to work in the insurance industry. But while I was doing that, I went to college and did photography at college. And the very first thing they said you're going to do is a very exciting thing. We're going to process a film. And I thought, oh, well. And even though the college darkroom and processing was automated, though, it still smelled horrible. Digital came along and it was like a breath of fresh air. I could do this thing in the daylight. I could talk to people while it was happening. And my first digital camera was a little Sony long, and it was 3 megapixel, and it had a memory stick in it. Do you remember the memory sticks?
I remember those, yeah.
And I thought it was amazing that it had a screen on the back. You could see what it was that I was doing. And from there, it just went rapidly downhill. And my first DSLR was a Canon 350D. And I remember standing in the shop, I had a Canon in one hand and a Nikon in the other. And I chose the Canon just because it felt more comfortable in my hand. Fast forward some more time, and I'm now working full-time for the Insurance Institute of Manchester. And they run events. They run huge dinners, like 700 people at a dinner. And different insurance companies and different brokers also run events. And, can you come down and photograph it? Because you do know a bit about photography. So I went off and photographed all those events. And then I thought, do you know what? I think I could do this full time. And I walked away. And I sat in the pub that lunchtime thinking, there's no money this month. A bit like you with Camversation.
Yeah, I've been there.
And suddenly you think, you've got to earn some money. And a lot of the work that I did subsequently was for the same insurance companies, the same insurance brokers, the same intermediaries. I carried on doing the work for them, but now they've had to pay me. And then I got involved in agency work, which was much easier than working for newspapers where they say, chase somebody. I was never into that. But they would say, this event is happening with this person. So, for example, Alfie Bow is going to be doing whatever he's going to do at this particular place, at this particular time. Go get pictures of this man. And so I would turn up with my little press pass and go, I need to take pictures of Alfie Bow. And so that's what I did until I retired at 65. And whilst it was really hard work and a lot of stuff was done at night, in the rain, outdoors, indoors, of course, I wouldn't have changed it for the world. It was the best thing I ever did. I loved it. It just wasn't a job.
No. And so varied as well, by the sound. So no 2 weeks must have been the same.
We did stuff for Britain's Got Talent. And do you remember the X Factor?
I do.
The X Factor had their grand final in London and it got double booked. So they moved it to Manchester. And that was brilliant. So I went and photographed that. So all the stuff behind the scenes at ITV, all behind the scenes at BBC. Now I know why things are so expensive to make.
Yes, I'll bet.
Yeah, it was just brilliant. So when I retired, the great thing then was that I could do what I wanted, when I wanted, for as long as I wanted. And I could then just say, do you know what? I've had enough. I can stop and do something different. So then I joined the RPS and I did my associateship with the RPS for kicks as much as anything. And yeah, after that, I did some work for Camera Gloves and I now do presentations for Camera Gloves and judge and you name it.
You're active and you also organise our wonderful meetups as well.
Yeah, it wasn't very much of an organisation. I'm afraid you've got to take the credit for most.
But actually, moving away from that kind of almost like reportage kind of documentary style stuff into what you do now, because a lot of what you do now is much more open-ended and creative. And I know we might get to see some of these because I haven't seen these, but I didn't want Diane to show me first.
I don't know.
You moved towards that quite a lot, haven't you? In the last few years?
Yeah. I think that the freedom, the ability to do different things, because of my career history, if you like, I had to be very much on the ball and the ability to change what I was doing very quickly. And it's like not talking to people at camera culture say you need to learn how to use your camera in the dark, ideally. So you're not fiddling around. The camera then gets in the way of your photography. And the more I thought about things like that, the more I thought, I can actually do. I can try this multiple exposure thing. I can try shooting with a drone. I can try, and it doesn't matter if it all goes horribly wrong. It doesn't matter anymore. Whereas it did before, I had to be on the ball all the time, and now I don't. That relaxation changed the way I did things.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And I know we're going to get a chance to see quite a few of these, or hopefully quite a few of these. Diane has told me that she snuck at least an extra one into this 5 from the archive, ruining the format, as it were, but
I know,
it's fine. I'll let you have that one.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Di, we have got your first image. Now, I've just said to you that I think this is an absolutely super image, really appeals to me. So tell me about why you've included this as one of your 5/6 from the archive. Why is this one important to you?
Okay, it's important because it's the first time I tried to do long exposures with a drone. What I realised when I set off to my horror is that the longest exposure time I can get with the Mini 4 Pro, which is the drone I was using, is 2 seconds. Afterwards, I thought, I suppose that makes complete sense because in the air, there will be some movement. With the best will in the world, it's not going to be 100% stable because it's not one of these high-powered, heavy drones that is going to hang in the air perfectly. So I'd seen some YouTube things and I talked to some people at the drone club that I'm a member of, and they'd suggested a few things. So I picked the calmest day that I could find, and I liked this roundabout, which is just outside the centre of Cleethorpes. So it meant that I got plenty of space without hanging over anybody's house. And I took, I can't think how many photographs I took. The drone just hung in the air, and every time a car came past, I took a picture. Every time a bus went past, I took a picture. And then the very obliging bus stopped at the bus stop at the bottom. And two people got off it and stood there staring at the drone. So that's why there's those two small people there. And then another bus came the other way. So in total, I was probably hanging around in the dark for a best part of an hour. I was able to land the drone, change the battery, send it back to where it had come from, and had a friend with me who was spotting for me and making sure there was nobody creeping up behind me. And when I got home, I got all this huge range of pictures. Photoshop is great. I was able to just drop them all into Photoshop in layers, and then you can merge the layers together and bring everything level. And then you can blend them together. And so I just used auto blend and then started to fiddle with the exposures. So really, this was a labour of love.
Yeah.
A, to see if I could shoot at night, and B, experiment with long exposures. I think too many people don't do enough with their drones then. I see the same pictures over and over when I'm looking online. So I was trying to do something a little bit different.
It also demonstrates your sort of ability to make what would be quite a boring shot, perhaps, quite dynamic with the level of movement, engagement, and twists and turns you've got in this. There's a lot to see in this image, isn't there?
Yes, I've done it again since, but I think that this was the better of the two. Now the nights are getting darker earlier, and if the weather will ever play ball with me ever again, I'll certainly go and have another go, because there's a place in Skegness, they have a clock in the middle of Skegness, which is the roundabout. And I figure there's a shops round, there's a tower, there's the clock. I can maybe do something there, but that's going forward.
Yeah. Oh, super. It's so interesting. This is the first drone shot we've had on these 5 from the archives as well. So really interesting to see. Thank you very much.
Picture number 2.
Oh gosh, this one's quite different then. Very different to a drone shot.
I've tried to pick different styles because I've tried to do so many different things. I've tried to pick some different shots. This one was 2 years in the planning. It was something I'd seen that I wanted to try, but you need the space to do it. You need the right person to leap about in it, and you need the right lighting, and you need as much help as you could possibly get. So for start with, I had to find a location. I couldn't do it in any of the studios. That's why approach said, you're not putting flour in the air. Flour, by the way, is explosive if it gets too hot. This is Tesco's finest plain flour, by the way. I found a location, which unfortunately is no longer available, but there, in the middle of a field, there was a disused church. And when I say disused, no windows, no doors, but a huge space inside. So we were undercover. There was plenty of pressure. There was going to be no danger of anything horrible going wrong. The girl in the picture I have known for a lot of years, and she's been a supermodel for all sorts of people. And she said, I will come and do this for you because it's totally different. It'll be no charge. I'll bring my partner down with me and get it all set up. So we headed off to this building, which is in the deepest, darkest Lincolnshire. The setup was lights on either side, jammed, both sides of her. I had 2 people chucking flour at her, but she knelt on the floor to start with, and we just covered her in flour. And we put it in her hair, we put it in her clothes, so she had up to different outfits. And then, of course, we had to be a long way away, hence the need for a big building, telephoto lens. And we shot solidly for about 4 hours. And amazingly, not a single person came, because it was an open place, public could walk in any time. And we shot all day and nobody came at all. And we got loads and loads of pictures. And this one, I entered it into quite a few competitions and it did extraordinarily well, which I was very pleased with. But it was because of the time, because of the planning, because of the girl, because of the location. It just means so much to me. She is still a good friend, although I haven't seen her for a couple of years. a guy from my camera club also came down, and he always says I'm taking credit for that because I threw the flower on the left-hand side, and her partner, was throwing flour as well, and it was just such an incredible day.
Yeah.
I just love the picture.
Absolutely. And it's not only the technical challenge and the combination of lights and action. For me as well, Di, the reason this works is because of the colour tone, because it's such a beautiful colour tone across there, isn't it? There's no harsh or sharp or contrasting colours. Everything is just beautifully toned. Was that intentional, but is that something that was achieved in that?
It was partly that. I knew the building and I decided that was where I was going to shoot. And there was this, obviously, with it being a huge church, there was different parts of it that had different colour tones. And yes, we did wander about a little while and try to pick the right place. The dark tone immediately behind her used to be the main entrance, and it was boarded over. And the only editing that I've done is that there's a bit of graffiti on the door, and I took the graffiti out because it was a bit of a distraction. But the walls, that's the colour they are. The floor, cobbled floor, is exactly as it was. And when we left, we cleaned that patchy floor. We swept everything up, cleaned that patchy floor. And I'm not exaggerating, 2 years later, I went back and I looked, and that patch of floor was still a little bit cleaner
than the rest.
than the rest of it. So yes, we're marked forever. Unfortunately, the East End collapsed on the 3rd of October this year, and it's now closed, derelict for everybody.
Yeah, super. Thank you so much. Outstanding image. Oh, here we go.
Oh, yes.
Hey!
Yes.
Now, I should probably say that the reason we're so excited is because that's the only time we've managed to transition from one picture to the other.
Yes.
Very different for this one, though, Di.
Different again. This is light painting. 10 years ago, 11 years ago, a company in America run by just 2 guys produced something called a pixel stick. And the pixel stick itself is 6 feet long. I'll show it you in a minute. It's just popped up at the back there as it happens. 6 feet long, 200 LEDs from top to bottom, and it's programmable. So you can make a picture and put it onto a compact flash card, which goes into the machine. And it works a bit like how a printer prints pictures one line at a time. This prints lights one line at a time. So the camera is focused on whatever is in the background. It's a long exposure, and I walk across with the stick. The stick plays the pattern back, and the sensor on your camera records it. So technically, I can produce that picture as a raw file. So it's a legitimate thing to put into competitions. And I put this into the Lincolnshire Photographic Association creative competition, and it just walked away with first prize. I was really pleased with that. But it's a tool I've used for years and years. And with the advent of AI, that horrible thing that everybody's scared to death of, what I'm aiming to do is start to create an image in AI and then finish it in Photoshop, convert it to a bitmap file, put it into the stick, and play the picture back. Then it's a case of lighting the background how I want it lit. So I've got torches and light sticks and all sorts of things that I can use to light the background. When I was taking this picture, this is St. James Church in Louth. And when I was taking these pictures, somebody came up to talk to me and they said, "What are you taking?" And I was showing him what was on the back of the camera. And he looked at the camera and he looked at the doorway and he said, "But there's nothing there." And I said, "I know." And he said, "Well, how did you do it?" And I was showing him what I did. And he said, "Still can't see the holes. Where's the holes?" And if you can't get your head around how that works, then you're going to have real problems. And I keep trying to explain this to people. Very sadly, the pixel stick went out of production about 5 years ago. They didn't make it for very long. And I've managed to acquire another one, so I've got two. So when one dies,
Yeah.
there are other things. There's another stick made by a company called Photogear in China. That's where you got to get them from now. And apparently they are hideously expensive. But, so I don't know. So people say, "Can you do this?" And I can't say no. I can't. I
Not
can't
necessarily too late.
explain to anybody how to do it because the gear isn't there anymore.
And this is again another example of how the gear is important, the image is important, but equally the lighting and the surround, the background, the planning is important as well. Because if you just done this in front of a black background, which I imagine is possibly one of the first things that people would try with this kind of approach, it wouldn't have anywhere near the impact.
That's exactly what I did. I did it in the garage in front of a background that I put up, and I created lots and lots of images, and then realised that they were just pictures on a black background. So I had to go somewhere. We went to Lincoln at Christmas, and there's a big archway in front of the cathedral, and they'd lit it up with LEDs. And I stood in that archway and made pictures of Father Christmas and all sorts, and used them as Christmas cards.
Oh,
And it just works so well.
yeah.
People say, "How can I do that?" And the answer is, unless you can get hold of one of these things.
Yeah. Beautiful work, though. Beautiful. And again, it takes that photographer's eye, doesn't it, to make it work, to make to elevate it a little bit.
This was my sixth one that I just wanted to share. I don't do wildlife photography. It's not as I've not got the patience for it. No, it's all right. I've not got the patience for it. I tend to be able to do backside shots, right? The bum shots are my speciality. I live 9 miles from a place called Donegal, and every year at this time of year, November, December, the females grey seal come onto the beach, they give birth, and then they go. If I go to Donegal to take photographs, they're just lying around waiting to give birth, or they're lying around feeding the pups, which is nice. And the big bulls are there, but there's not a lot of activity. A friend of mine said, "I can take you out to another place, which shall remain nameless, and you can see them frolicking in the surf." So we went a couple of weeks ago, so that they are getting ready to give birth, but they were in the sea checking us out. And we stayed a long way from the herd because that's the right thing to do. So with a 400mm lens, with a 1.4 extender on, and a crops sensor camera, because I use the Fuji X-T5, it gives you that little bit of extra length. And while we were there, these two came floundering across the beach, splashing away in the water. And to my great delight, it was a rainbow in the background. And I couldn't have timed it better if I had put my mind to it. And I just love, because I'm not a wildlife photographer, I got terribly excited by it. So I did put a few pictures up on my Facebook page, but it was just such a wonderful day. It was cold, it was windy, it was bleak.
But it was
before. I'm sorry, I just had to include it.
Oh, no, you're allowed to get
the 6-month mark. I got excited.
You're allowed to break the format for this one. It's got a rainbow in it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Beautiful image as well.
Totally different again. When I did my associateship with the RPS, I did these multiple exposure pictures, and I took the inspiration from a Catalan photographer called Pep Ventosa, and I'm sure a lot of people watching will know the name at the very least. And I thought, I would love to be able to do something like that. I couldn't for the life of me work out how it had been done. And eventually, after a lot of research, I got in touch with a Canadian photographer who was actually a lawyer. And in his spare time, he was a brilliant photographer, and he was doing some multiple exposure things. And I started talking to him, and between us, we sussed out how this thing was done. And so what I've done here is I stood on the right-hand side of the road and pointed my camera at the top of the arch, and then walked across the road 2 or 3 steps and took another one and pointed the camera in exactly the same spot. Another couple of steps, same spot, another couple of steps, same spot. I got to the other side of the road. So now I've got, I think it was about 30, 40 pictures of the same thing from a slightly different angle. When I got back home, then I loaded them all into Lightroom, edited each picture how I wanted it so they were all similar tones and textures, and then took them into Photoshop as a stack. Then the guy in Canada said, I've written a shortcut to process them. And he sent me a script that I installed into Photoshop. If anybody wants to have a go with this and they want the script, let me know and I will send it to you, not a problem. And it does a lot of the donkey work for you, because what you have to do is blend each layer, but not at the same opacity. So it will start, the first layer is 100%, second layer is 50%, the third layer is 25, and then it goes 12, 10, 5, whatever. However many layers you've got, it will work out for you how much opacity to have in each layer. So I did one of a carousel and I think it had 70 layers in it, and it worked it all out for me. And then you have to go back and delete all the bits, or the bits that you don't want in the picture. For example, in the carousel one that I did, there was a post, and so it appeared 72 times. I had to get rid of it 72 times. And with this one, I did leave the bit of gate in because I thought that added to it. Now, these pictures don't look as good projected as they do printed. I printed them for the associateship, no bigger than 9x6. And I printed them on textured paper, and they looked really good. And I just walked away with my associateship. So that's 15 pictures in this sort of style and a statement of intent. And so if anybody's interested in doing RPS stuff, then that's what you've got to do. So that's why I loved this style of imagery, and I used it a lot subsequently. You have to have the right subject. Some subjects work better than others. If you look what Pep Ventosa does, he's using street lamps and corners of things because you can go around them. So you don't have to go in a straight line. You go, he describes it as shooting in the round. So he's going around things. That's why it worked well with the carousel, because you just have to walk all the way around it. I've got lots of people in that shot as well, but they're all translucent. There.
And that comment about this looking better on print, I really can see that this printed on the right textured paper is going to have a really three-dimensional feel to it, isn't it?
Yes, it does. And this, I chose this one out of the 15 or so from the project because I can't show you all 15. It crossed my mind to show you the panel, but I thought no, because they're too small then. So I just picked the one that I liked the best out of the panel. But the panel is on my website. If anybody wants to go and have a look at it under my RPS distinctions. But I just love doing it. And again, you've got to get the tones right and the shapes, and then you've got to layer them and realign them. You can't align them in Photoshop because they're all taken from different angles. So Photoshop just throws its arms up and says, can't do that. So you've got to do it all manually. So it's a bit of a labour of love, really. The other thing that happens is as you stack them, the colours become more and more intense till they look horrible. So you've got to start redoing the colours as well. And the shadows go very dark, so you've got to sort those out. So there's a lot of work goes into each and every shot.
But very much worth it, you can see.
Yes.
Absolutely outstanding. Do you know, the variety of what you've shown in these first few images, it's been absolutely super. I think it's a great reflection of the kind of things that you're interested in as well, and your capabilities across a variety of genres.
I just love being able to play
Yeah.
and experiment. And what's the point if you can't experiment? Everybody's got favourite things that they shoot. I just like to play.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yes, this one. This one came about that there was a video on YouTube, and there was a guy making composites. And I'm not great with composites. This is probably one of the better ones that I've done. I'll just break it down for you to start with. The guy in the picture is a friend of mine who likes to dress up 1940s style. So he's getting there with this particular picture. But he was actually sat on a chair in a studio at the far bottom end of Lincoln. The bench is British Rail, one of British Rail's best. The suitcase on the floor is a case that belonged to my great uncle when he was demobbed. So it's a demob case. The mid-ground, I actually can't remember where the mid-ground is. The background is Manchester Airport. We did quite a lot of photography at the airport from the end of the runway, but you can also see up the side of it as well. The rain is pretty real. It rains in Manchester, doesn't it? It's where I come from. I'm a Manchester lass, so I'm used to the rain. What I found was that when people put rain into pictures artificially, what I could see was that what was in the background was generally dry. So you'd see a picture of a person, the person would be dry, but it'd be raining. So I was watching this YouTube video, how to make the thing in the background look wet. So it was about learning how to do things in Photoshop. So I learned how to make a brush that had water drops on it. I learned how to photograph heavy rain, which is what's happening at the bottom. That is real photography of that rain. And then I learned how to make splashes on the knees, on his hands, and on the back of the bench, and on the seats of the bench, and how to make the colours blend. And actually, I've had this in quite a few competitions of British photography exhibitions, the BPEs, and it's done very well. And I think it's done well because I've got the tonal range right, and because the rain looks better than normal. The other thing that people do with rain is that all the streaks are the same size. It doesn't rain like that. If you look out the window, I could look out the window now and it's pouring down with rain. It doesn't look like straight pieces of rain. They're all coming down at different rates. So you need to get that bit sorted out. So it's not perfect, but I love it as a picture because of all the work that went into it. It was weeks of work to get the different parts right and then to try and put it together. Probably what it's lacking is the right shadows, I think. But overall, pleased with it.
But again, another example of continually moving forward, trying new things, widening your skill set and so on, but equally identifying the nuanced stuff as to why the rain doesn't look real. I think that's a real key aspect, isn't it? Because it's those details that matter, I think.
It is. It's about thinking about what it's going to look like at the end. And this is probably about the fullest incarnation of this picture. And when I was looking for pictures to show, I found more versions of this that I'd forgotten about because I only kept this one. But when I said earlier, I was working on 2 computers. This is the older one of the 2. I found the old versions of this on that machine.
Yeah, so fantastic. And the benefit of this kind of tech and approach is that you can go back with new skills and re-edit if you wanted to.
Yes, absolutely. Because I've still got all the layers, so I can play around with it.
And I've thoroughly enjoyed this. I think your photography is so diverse. It is brilliant.
It had to be, I think, because of the job that I had, and I'm sure other people that have done this full time. I did shoot weddings a little bit, but for me, that was more about crowd control than anything else. You do the wedding, and then I don't know who it is. I need Uncle Fred, and I ask somebody to go and get Uncle Fred, and Uncle Fred's at the bar, and then the person that's gone to get Uncle Fred doesn't come back because he's gone to the bar. And I thought, I just haven't got the patience for it. I did a few, and some of them were really nice. Some of them, that's a whole other story, really. Yes, I'm not going into that. I preferred the commercial stuff because you go to an office, you go to a building, they want you in, they want you out, so they're going to cooperate to get you out again. So that's why I love that so much.
Yeah. And looking at where you are now with your photography from those days, it's just another world away, isn't it? It would have been so easy just to continue. I don't mean this in a negative way. It would have been so easy to continue with that same style of photography But the kind of routes and things you've gone since then, it's just fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah, I just kept thinking, I think I've been inspired by people at different camera clubs. This is why I enjoy judging so much, because I go to a camera club or I go for a DVD or I go to the theatre and I see all these amazing images. When you're looking at big pieces of theatre, there's nobody there except you and a couple of other judges and the people who are organising. Go to a camera club. Something cropped up the other day. I was judging at a club that will remain nameless, and there was a picture that came up. And I said, that is incredible. Is the photographer here? And of course, yes, the photographer was there. And then you ask them how they did it, and they're over the moon. That they want to tell you.
Yeah.
And I'll just tell you this one very short story. The very first camera club I ever went to when I lived in Stockport. It's closed down now, so I can tell you where it was. It was normally a camera club. And the first night that I ever went, they'd had a competition. And there was a picture that I can't even remember what the picture was now. And I said to the photographer, how did you do that? And he said, if I told you, you would know. And he walked away. And it was at that point that I said to my other half, if I ever get good enough that somebody says to me, how did you do that? I'm going to tell them, because it's really unfair to just hide what you do. And when I do photography talks, one of the things I always say is that there are no secrets, or there shouldn't be any secrets in photography. We should share our art and share our skill, because it's art. At the end of the day, we are all artists. Whether we're good, bad, or indifferent, we're artists, and we need to share our skills. And the more we share, the better it gets. And that's why Camversation, I think, is so successful, because it's diverse. And you might go and watch a talk that you've put on, and you might walk away and go, that is just not for me. But that doesn't matter, because next week there'll be something else that you think, actually, I didn't think that would be for me, but do you know what? I'm going to have a go. You had a guy on from Scotland. Stan Farrow, thank you. When he came on, I thought, oh, I'm not sure about it. And by the time it had finished, I was screenshotting stuff to remind me. And I went away and I played with it, and I got in contact with him. And I said, do you ever put any of these pictures into your camera club competitions? And he said, no, there's no point, because they won't go anywhere, because judges don't understand them. And I go out of my way to try and understand creative pictures that people put into competitions, because I want people to move forward and do something they're uncomfortable with. And I think it's because when I was working, I was constantly having to do things I wasn't comfortable with. And now I can do it in my own time. If you're not getting paid for it, it doesn't matter, does it? In fact, sometimes if you are getting paid for it, you should be able to experiment a bit. But experimentation is key, and it's not about the gear. It really isn't about the gear. There are people that I know that do amazing things with mobile phones. I think people get too carried away with the gear and the software. And the other thing I say in talks is, if Photoshop suddenly stopped working, or Lightroom suddenly stopped working, when you were stuck with it, that this is where it is now, what's going to happen to your photography? Is going to go better, worse, or stay the same? And some people say that it would go worse because the software isn't moving along. And I say, no, it isn't. It's going to get better, because your camera, you will push it to its extremes. The software you'll push it to its extremes. There is a photographer that I know that uses CS3 still, and his pictures are amazing.
Diane, thanks so much for coming along to do this. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. I could chat with you forever. I think it's wonderful to know you really could.
You're so flattering.
No, not at all. You know it's the case. You know it's the case. And I do hope I can meet up with you in real life again at one of our later meetups as well. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I will see you.
I really enjoyed it, actually, in the end.
I figured you would. I figured you would. Thanks a lot, Diane.